Let's talk about it, don't fly away. Some conversations need a moment to breathe.
I want to talk about this Karmelo Anthony case. I think that there is some factors that everybody is overlooking and it's driving me crazy. So if you don't know, Karmelo Anthony is being charged with murder of a guy named Austin Metcalf. And Austin Metcalf's, his brother Hunter was there. And I was wondering why people kept mentioning the brother. The brother was not the one that put his hands on Karmelo. He's not the one that passed away. I was wondering why it was such a big factor. But now I see that this might be a big thing for the defense and the prosecutors. Actually, it could play both ways because it seems that the defense is going to try to frame it like the brother, Hunter, who is still here, who did not put his hands on Karmelo. They're going to try to make it seem like they were crowding Karmelo, and maybe he thought that they were going to jump him, or he was afraid, he was outnumbered. I did some research, and apparently these two guys, Hunter and Austin, they are much larger than Karmelo. He's about 5'8", 100 something pounds versus both of these other guys. They were 6 foot or over 6 foot, 200 pounds, and they're standing around him. He is in their tent at this moment at a track meet. If you know anything about track meets, they have tents set up to keep you out of the sun, the rain, things like that. For some reason, Karmelo's team didn't have a tent. Okay. Now it's unclear if Karmelo knew somebody under this tent, if he was trying to mingle, talk to somebody, who knows, but he was under another team's tent. Now, if you ever ran track before, you know that this is actually a normal thing. We go mingle, hang out under people's tents all the time. Sometimes we know people, sometimes we don't. Sometimes they might have more space, more shade. Like it's typically not an issue. So I think just the fact that they made that such a big issue, it kind of just sucks. I think that in sports, we all should be practicing sportsmanship and, just I don't understand what the big issue was. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So he's under the other team's tents, and these two guys are like, "What are you doing over here? Leave." And so allegedly, Karmelo's just like, "Hey, don't put your hands on me." Okay, cool. But they're like, "You gotta go." And they're having a little back and forth, and Austin puts his hands on Karmelo. Well, before Austin puts his hands on Karmelo, Karmelo starts reaching in his bag. We don't know what's in the bag. Austin decides to put his hands on Karmelo after he was told not to. And Karmelo reacted by pulling whatever was in his bag out, and he stabbed Austin. And Austin passed away in his brother Hunter's arms. So I think that this works for the defense and the fact that Karmelo may have felt outnumbered, scared, or the fact he had to defend himself, right? But for the prosecution, the fact that Austin died in Hunter's arms, now Hunter seems like a victim more than a threat. So I know it's definitely going to be some back and forth on that. It can be played a lot of different ways, especially with a jury trial. Even though they're not supposed to play into the emotional part, the jury they're gonna feel emotions. It's gonna be a very emotional trial. So that part is definitely gonna be a good back and forth subject. I think another important thing here that people tend to forget is that in order for something to be a crime, it's not about what you feel, how you feel. there are laws and legal definitions, and it's so many things that play into it that are not what you feel or how anybody feels, how the lawyers feel, how the jury feel, how the judge may feel, because there are certain things that have to be in place in order for something to be a crime, just period. So this is actually it's going to be some good back and forth when it comes to the trial, because in order for something to be a crime, right, somebody has to have been harmed. Yes, that element was met. There has to be an act, there has to be intent. That's where it starts to get muddy, because did Karmelo intend for Austin to pass away? I don't think so. I think that charging him with murder, I think that's too much. I don't think that he intended for him to be murdered. And again, you might feel differently. I might feel differently. Everybody might feel differently about the situation, but that is the definition of a crime. Just period, point blank. There has to be intent. Okay. I feel that Karmelo was trying to defend himself. He may have thought that the two brothers were going to harm him. I don't feel like the intent element is going to be met in this case. I feel like he intended to protect himself, not that he intended to hurt anybody or kill anybody. So I don't know. I want to know what you guys think about it. Open to opinions. I'm just telling you guys the facts. And that's all I got. I want to talk about this Karmelo Anthony situation. I think that there are some angles that everybody is missing. I think that when someone passes away, people start to get too emotional and they start to forget about the facts. So if you don't know, Karmelo is being charged with murder. He was out of track meet. And if you run track before, you know this, but I'm gonna give you a quick rundown. You at a track meet, typically your team will have a tent. The tent is to cover you from the sun, to give you some shade. Sometimes it might be raining. And it's not unlikely for people to mingle in between tents. You might know people in the other tents. You might go mingle with another team. You might be trying to steal some shade. They might have more space. They might have more shade. Yeah, I mean, you just never know. It's not uncommon for people to mingle between tents. So what happened was Karmelo is mingling. He's under another team's tent, and two guys who are much larger than him, they walk up to him like, "Hey, what are you doing under our tent? You got to go." So his team didn't have a tent. He wanted to hang out over there. Typically, this is not an issue. So I'm having a hard time understanding what the issue was. Okay. So the guys are like, "You got to go." And he's like, just don't put your hands on me. All right. So they're having a little back and forth. He reaches in his bag, and Austin decides to put his hands on Karmelo after Karmelo said not to put his hands on him. He did it anyway. Now, Karmelo is a small guy, and the two guys that were standing around him, they're twin brothers, right? And he's reaching in his bag. So at this point, he told them not to touch him. He might have been scared that they were going to jump him, because now he's been touched. We don't know what's going to happen now. When people get touched, things start to happen. So he pulls whatever he had out of his bag, allegedly a pocket knife, and he stabs the person that hit him, right? So the other brother allegedly did not hit Karmelo, right? So that's going to play a major factor into both the defense and the prosecutor's case. Austin and Hunter were both standing in front of him. Did Karmelo think that they were going to jump him? Now, what happened after the situation, Karmelo reacts, he stabs Austin. Austin passes away in Hunter's arms, right? Now, this is an emotional situation. It starts to get people are starting to get emotionally inclined and have opinions. But what happens in court is not. It's not about opinions. We're talking about facts. So Austin passed away in his brother Hunter's arms, right? So the prosecutor is going to be able to use this to their defense because now Hunter looks like a victim versus a threat. So it can play both ways. The defense can argue that that Karmelo was scared. The prosecutor can argue that Hunter was a victim and that Austin and Hunter were victims. And that can also look really, really bad for Karmelo. So that is going to be very touchy. Again, it's not supposed to be about emotions, but when you're dealing with a jury of human people, there are going to be emotions, which kind of sucks when you're in a court of law, but it is what it is. It's not supposed to be a thing, but how can you not feel emotional about that? A kid has passed away. Another kid is might be throwing his life away, might be going to prison. How can you not be emotional about that? So that's definitely going to be a situation. I think another part of it that people are forgetting is that a crime must have occurred. Okay, there's a legal definition for a crime. 7 elements have to be met for it to be a crime. And I think the part that is missing is the intent. Karmelo is being tried for murder. Did he intend to murder this kid? That's where it starts to get murky. I don't think so. Maybe you guys might think so. I don't know. But that is going to be a huge thing in this case. Can they prove that he intended? I think that murder is understand it from the other side. If my kid passed away or my family member or whatever the case was, I'd be pissed. Get him for murder, put him away. But on the other end, I don't think that he intended for the boy to pass away. I think he intended to protect himself, to defend himself, to not get jumped. I don't think that the element of intent is going to be met in order to prosecute Karmelo for murder. I am curious what you guys think. Again, it is an emotional thing, but take your emotions out of it and think about the facts. Think about legal definitions. Think about the court of law. Of course, people are outraged. People are upset, but let's talk about the facts. I'm very, very curious what you guys think about it. This is going to be very interesting. I want you guys to drop your opinions, everything in the comments. I'm very curious. That's all I got for you.
And before we go, don't forget what to do. Like, share, subscribe, and stay connected too. If the conversation matters, help it reach somebody today. Let's talk about it, don't fly away.